So it's taken me, I talk about this sacrificial rite. The Sanskrit word for it, my friend Michael Grossman, one of the great Waking Down teachers, uses the pronunciation that I've come to use more, which is yagya. In my training with my teacher Adida, it was transliterated Y-A-J-N-A, and we pronounced it yajna. But yagya, I think, is I don't know, I just like it better. Some of my eccentricities here. My understanding of a yagya is that it is a great sacrificial ceremony. That massive attention and resources brought to bear, often for long periods of time, or repetitively over long periods of time, for the sake of something very, very great. And the essence of the rite for me, it wasn't merely that I was holding back from speaking these truths and sharing this heart of our heart mystery with you in this kind of way, taking my stand this way. It wasn't merely that I was doing that because people couldn't handle what seemed to be highfalutin guru language, self-referential, I am that supreme, blah, 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 blah. It wasn't just about that, though that was a big piece of it. And there's a lot of history that could be talked about. It's not pertinent right now. Maybe it'll show up in later parts of the book, because I think I've only written a third or so of the book at most. I'm not even exactly sure. And as I've said earlier, it could change a lot between here and an actual book in our hands. Who knows if that ever even happens. But anyway, my point here is that the reason that I did this holding back, and that it was such a sacrificial ritual for me, was not merely because I had to accommodate the capacity of others who were hungry for their basic realization of that allness, and weren't ready for their psyches to go through a process that would take them into the necessity of speaking as that, and of finding a way to do that that didn't appear to be disempowering of others' capacity to do the very same thing. When someone says, I am that, and they've got presence, charisma, being force, mana, whatever you want to call it, to have that be persuasive, even to very smart, discerning other human beings, it appears by virtue of our extensive evolutionary history of superiors and inferiors, of a lack of fundamental recognition and continual affirmation of equality in being. It appears to mean that that person is the supreme one, existentially superior, hierarchically above others, and especially you or me, looking at someone else that way. So I had to hold back because people weren't ready, but also I wasn't ready. I wasn't ready. And what to say about that? Well, this gets into what we're going to encounter more in a later part of the book, making a distinction between the core, or drawing a circle around my own heart, looking at it on screen, the hard essence of our body, mind, personhood, the core of it, and what we could call the periphery. We're a little wary of that word periphery because it tends to connote something less important. But the periphery is no less important than the core. The periphery of our being, our body, mind, spirit, psyche, all of the dimensions, our soul essence, all the dimensions of our unique individuality and distinctness are not less important than this great sameness that is the core, that is not only spiritual but also material. It is the allness of all that is our own most intimate center. That's true in the same way that our skin is not less important to us than our heart organ or any number of our other internal organs. And we could then parse all that and say, well, you can get by without one lung and blah, 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 blah. It's part of why natural analogies really don't serve all that well. They always come to a point where they fall off a cliff. And they don't apply here. But the other key point here, therefore, is that my peripheral nature had to grow into and be purified into, be refined into a capacity to hold this knowing of this feeling, knowing being identical to the great allness, the great sun that is shining in the heart of every heart. My body-mind-person complex wasn't ready for that. And I've lived out that refinement in a manner that is in some ways peculiar to our work. By peculiar, I mean unique, particular to our work. Our general approach that is fundamentally post-hypermasculine while everybody is continuing to outgrow the vestiges, or it's post-spirit matter split, easier to say it that way, I think easier to understand. It's fundamentally post-spirit matter split, post-privileging spirit and what is transcendental and above or most universal over matter and what is otherwise particular, local, and limited. Our way of living this out is continually outgrowing the vestiges of that spirit-matter split, even while we are fundamentally established beyond it in a manner that appears to many of us, Linda Ma and me and many other Waking Down teachers and other people who've gone through the basic realization that we call the second birth. So I had to outgrow and refine and become tempered and become further humbled and become further ennobled. And when I talk about in the later essay here, essay number 4, that this we'll be working, I need to edit this, working throughout our remaining explorations in this book. I need to edit it. We'll be exploring, better to say, how this very knowing, especially in communion with others, myself included, will trend over time, powered by your desire and your participation, your increasingly ardent service. It's going to tend to evoke the transfiguration of your body, the coronation of your soul, the divinization of your psyche. Grand, highfalutin words and phrases, and I say a year later that it takes you into being something like a divine slave to the well-being of one and all. And some people, as I've read this at earlier occasions, people have sometimes objected to that word slave. It's a bit extreme, but so far I'm not inclined to pull it out. Because this is not about merit badges, and it's not about Enai Grand. It's about given overness. It's about always being true to yourself. There's an ongoing individuation it's a default place. You can't set that aside and be living this truth truly, this reality really. But nonetheless, the greater your identification with that onlyness, the greater your self-awareness as that all-shining sun in the heart of all existence, the greater your awareness as that becomes, your self-awareness, so that self-awareness is no longer latent and kind of troubling you. It's pressing on you. It's calling you to figure out how to be in touch with the infinite, how to get out as grand as all spirit. As that becomes more and more profoundly established, you simultaneously find yourself given over more and more to finding how you precisely can best be of service to one and all. So there's a great paradox. The individuation does not stop in any kind of protracted adolescence. That's me, 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 me. But you also can't deny the truth of your own existence. And there are times when you may very well find that you have to proclaim it or announce it. You may very well not also. And this is something I really want to emphasize as well. It's not that everyone who lives this out has anything like the same calling and expression in the world.